If you were ever interested in learning about Raspberry Pi and you want to know the basic commands, stay tuned, this video is for you. Hey, Crazy Will here from Crazy Will's Tech Show. Today, we're going to go through basic commands of a Raspberry Pi. Well, some of them, it gets pretty lengthy on the commands, but this tutorial will show you how to navigate through a Raspberry Pi and some really basic commands to get you started, basically working on any project that you want to get started with. And now this is the fundamentals. This is the stuff that I ran into a roadblock when I was trying to do certain projects and I wasn't very good with the Raspberry Pi. Well, fast forward over 3 years later, I've gotten pretty proficient with a Raspberry Pi. And the projects that I have done have been smart home type of Raspberry Pi using HOOBs. I've set up other smart homes with Home Assist and many other ones on a Raspberry Pi. I've set up RetroPie, which is a gaming console so you can play all your old games, you know, Nintendo, arcade games, stuff like that. I set up Octoprint for my 3D printers. I have one Pi running 3 different 3D printers with cameras, one of those Raspberry Pis into a VPN so I can access my 3D printers through the VPN and be on my home network. And for those of you that don't know what that is a virtual private network. I've also set up a Raspberry Pi Zero, and you can see that video here on what a Raspberry Pi Zero is, to actually work with my other 3D printer that is a resin 3D printer with a camera. So there are a lot of projects, and there's stuff that I don't even remember that I tried doing. I think I set up MediaVolt and so many other different things, and I've used regular operating systems. But needless to say, I have quite a bit of experience in using a Raspberry Pi. Not saying I'm any expert by any means. I've been wanting to make this video for a long time, but I wanted to make sure that I got it just right, and I think I got it for you. And it's a little bit long, guys, but I think it's well worth it, and I try to keep it entertaining. And I know it's coding and it's not always fun to watch this stuff, but at least it'll give you the basics of how to navigate inside the Pi and actually make files and directories. So let's get over to the computer and I'll show you how to do this. All right, so before I get started with the tutorial, I want to show you this real quick. If you go to my channel page and you go to playlists, I have one on Raspberry Pi, all the Raspberry Pi videos right here. We'll click on that one. And in that video, I have obviously what is a Raspberry Pi, and the one that you probably want to know before you get started with this is how to set up a Raspberry Pi with Wi-Fi and SSH. And I go through a quick tutorial on how to do that so that way you guys can be set up and running in no time. Another one that you may want to look at, and I got some of my projects that I worked on here, you know, I take a look at a Raspberry Pi Zero and go into that, but another one that you really would want to probably look at is how to set it up headless without a keyboard or a mouse. And that's how I'm going to be doing it with this Raspberry Pi. I don't have it hooked up with a keyboard and mouse. I'm going to be doing it from my Mac. And now if you don't have a Mac, that's fine. You just have to use a little program called Putty, and I'll leave in the link in the description down below. I may do a tutorial on that, but I'm not going to be doing it in this one, but I am going to show you how to do it on your Mac. So the first thing we want to do is we want to SSH into the Pi. You need to know your Raspberry Pi's IP address. I'm on a Mac, so I'm going to just type in terminal, and I'm going to open up a terminal window. There are 3 ways that I know to do this. If you have the capability of logging into your router and you know how to do that, you can look up the IP address. It'll usually say Raspberry Pi, and you could see it that way. Another way you could do it is if you actually are connected to your Raspberry Pi through a keyboard and mouse, you can go into the Raspberry Pi and type in this command, sudo iconfig. If you click on that, it'll give you all the information you need on your Raspberry Pi. What we're interested in is this right here, because I'm running a Raspberry Pi 4 on Wi-Fi. So in this case, the IP address would be right here. That's the IP address to the Pi, and that's how you can actually set it up. So if your Raspberry Pi is connected through Ethernet, you want this right here. But if it's connected through Wi-Fi, you want this right here. That way you know which IP address you have. Now, if you have them both connected, you could use either or. In this case, I have Wi-Fi connection. I'm just going to grab this IP address right here. So that is the IP address for my Pi. Another way to get the IP address, if you can't do it in either way of these ways, and this is the last way I know how to do it, is you can download a little app on your phone that actually searches for things on your network, and it's called Fing. You could download Fing, the app, and then it searches for all the devices in your home. It doesn't always work to find every device, so I would try to do the Raspberry Pi way, or the router way is probably the best way, but for a last resort, if you can try and find the IP address using that app, I would highly recommend that. So let's get this out of the way. So what we're going to do, and I'm just going to copy and paste mine here because I have a little cheat sheet on the side here, and I copy and paste a lot of the stuff I do. But we're going to SSH space pi at and then the IP address, and then we hit enter. And you'll get this sometimes. It'll say, oh, stuff has changed. Just hit yes. And then you need to know the password that you set up for your Raspberry Pi. Okay, so here we are on the Raspberry Pi, and I'm going to use the most commonly used commands. So the first one that I think that everybody should know, and this has changed but it still works, is this one right here, sudo apt-get update. And I've heard it's changed, but it still works for me. So I'll show you that, and it'll go through the process of grabbing all the updates for your Raspberry Pi. This is really important to do. Okay, so that's done now. It grabbed all the packages from the web, and that's what that's basically doing. We're gonna put in sudo apt-get upgrade. Now what this is gonna do is upgrade the whole Pi. So we'll let that go ahead and do what it needs to do. And it says it wants to continue, hit yes, Y for yes, and then enter. All right, so that took about 20 to 30 minutes. I walked away from it for a minute. Now, if you want to do both of these at the same time, I will show you the new command. I'm not going to run it. I'm just going to show it to you. This is the new command. Oh, and I accidentally ran it. It's sudo apt-get update and sudo apt-get upgrade. And it automatically did it. So this is what you want to put in. And just for your reference, all this stuff will be down in the description below. I'm going to have a little cheat sheet for all you guys so that way you guys can see how to do all this. That's completely done. I'm going to hit no on that because I already did this. The next command is sudo reboot. And we're going to reboot this Pi. You want to do this after every update. It's doing that right now. We're logged out. If you're on a Mac, you automatically get logged out. If you're on Putty, you probably have to log back in, or it actually keeps the connection, I believe. I haven't used Putty in a very, very long time. All right, so after it's been a little bit, it'll reboot and we'll SSH back into the Pi. And again, you put in your password. Okay, so now we're back into the Pi. Now, there's going to be times when you're working with a program where you need to be the super user, the root user. Because right now, this is the user that you're using right now. You're using the Pi at Raspberry Pi. So that's the username is Pi. If you want to be the super user, the root user, you can put in sudo su, super user. Hit enter. And now you are the root user. So that means you can make changes on your Raspberry Pi. This comes in very handy when you need to be root access to particular files or to install certain things. You need root access. And then you can make changes to the Pi any way you see fit. Opposed to this one, it may say you don't have permissions if you're trying to do something on your Pi. When you see that, automatically go to super user. Now, if you want to log out of super user, you could do sudo login. And you could log into your Raspberry Pi back in. So we'll go ahead and log back in. Pi, password, and there you go. You're back to where you were originally. Super useful thing is if you want to change your Raspberry Pi settings. Let's say you need to change something with your settings. This is the command to put in for your settings. Sudo raspi-config. Put that in and you're in the configuration part of your Pi. And there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do here. Some of the stuff I've played with, some of it I haven't. You could update tools version. You could see about this Pi. You go to advanced options. In here you could expand the file system. You could GL drivers. A lot of this stuff I've never really messed with. Boot order, you can change the boot order if you want to actually boot from a USB device. HDMI, you could turn that on or off. There's all kinds of things you could do in here. So let's go into one of these. So yeah, you could hit 4K if you want, but I'm gonna go to cancel, and I'm arrowing through. You arrow up and down, and then when you get to the end of this part right here, you can arrow right, and then you write over to cancel, and then you hit enter. So everything's arrowing in here. That's what I'm doing right now. Interface connections. Let's see this one. So this is where you can enable and disable SSH, VNC. That's what I showed you on my computer, so that way you could see the actual interface of the actual Pi. So use it from computer to computer, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff that you can do in here. I don't think I've really played with any of these. Remote GIO pins, I've never played with that either, but we'll hit back. And this is just to give you an idea. Display configuration, I've done that a lot. You could change the aspect ratio, pixels, so you can go back from there. But this is a lot of advanced features that you can change. Performance options, you can overclock, you can do all kinds of stuff. You can turn off the fans or change the fan speed. Anyway, I just want to show you that, and we'll click down to arrow down and then right, finished. and then you're back to your window. All right, so another really cool command is if you put ls, and that's going to list the files that are under your username right now. So this is all the files. So now let's say you want to get into one of those directories. Let's say we want to get to desktop. Basically what you want to do is cd and then desktop, and then you hit enter. So cd space desktop. If you want to see what's in there, we can ls again. Commands, that's one of the files that I made. So if I want to go into that file, let's say I want to see what the commands are, the list of commands that I made, I can go to sudo nano the commands. We can go right in that. Boom. So this is a file that I created, and I'll show you how to create a file, but this is how you can get into files that are created. So all I did was escape out of here. We'll hit Control X. That gets us out of there. So just Control on your keyboard and then X. For example, if we want to get out of desktop, we can hit CD again. And now we're out of desktop. We're back to the original list. So now we can do ls, and then we have the original list right there. And basically what CD stands for is change directory. So we're going into directories. So to make it simple, if you're using a regular desktop folder, the directories are usually folders. Okay, so like on your desktop, we'll have a folder. So let's say I had a folder. So if this was the Raspberry Pi and I went to list ls, like I'm on the user, I hit ls and it shows me desktop, and then I cd change directory into the desktop like we just did, and then I want untitled folder, and that's what I would kind of clicking in the untitled folder, if that makes sense. Basically it's old time code where you're actually, instead of clicking around an operating system, you're actually writing into an operating system. You're actually telling it where to go. I hope that makes sense. If not, leave a comment down below and I will be happy to explain it to you. So let's say you want to create a file. Let's go to the desktop. Let's make one on the desktop so we could see it. So if I go to cd desktop and I go to ls, you see there's a command file. Let's make our own. We'll do sudo nano test.txt file. We're going to make it a text file, and we'll hit enter. Now we're in this test file. Let's just write something in here. I'm going to write Crazy Will Tech Show. Now we're going to save this. We're going to hit Control X. It's going to ask me if I want to save it. Yes. And the reason why we didn't have to do that before is because there was no changes made. This one had changes made. And then we're going to hit enter. Now if we go to ls again, you'll see there's the command sheet that I made, and now there's the test text. And if we want to go into that test text, we just go to sudo nano, which is actually a text editor. We'll just copy and paste this right in here. Boom, we're back in our file. So if we want to make changes to this, if I typed in changes like I did, and then we'll say this is 1, we'll put next down here. So that way if we want to make another change, we could do that. And then again, hit Control X, yes to save. That's a Y, you hit Y, and then enter. And now if we go to that ls again, that text file is still there, but it has been changed. So if we want to see the changes again, just type in the same command again, and we'll paste it right there. Boom, we're back in here, and there's the changes. And then hit Control X, and there was no changes, so we didn't have to hit yes or anything like that. So that kind of gives you an idea of what you can do, how you can navigate inside this. Like right now we're on the desktop, we want to get out of there, we hit CD, and then we hit ls, and it gives us the list of everything on our desktop. Again, let's try one more. Let's go into pictures. So if we want to go into pictures, copy that right there, we'll CD, and then we'll paste pictures, and then we'll hit ls, and there's no pictures in there. But that gives you an idea of how you can navigate through the operating system. So let's just hit CD and get back to the main page. Let's say I want to remove that document. I don't want it on the desktop anymore. And hit CD, desktop, ls, rm, and I'm going to put this right here. Remove write protection. Okay, so it's protected. So this is where one of the scenarios, like I was talking about before, doing the super user. So we'll put in sudo su, we'll be a super user now. We're at root, and if I hit ls here, I'll see that's there, and I'll go ahead, hit rm, and that should have automatically did it. So we'll do ls again, and boom. That right there is why you need root access. When I was first getting started, I used to get stuck on that all the time. I'm like, why can't I remove this? It said that I could do it. When they make these tutorials, they kind of assume that you know how to do these things. I didn't know how to do it at the time, and that's how you can do it. You go to that root directory and you're able to remove that file. I'm going to type in sudo log in. Okay, and the username is pi, and the password is my password. put it in, and now I'm back to the original Pi user. We'll go back to ls, and we'll go back to desktop again, cd, desktop, boom, ls. Let's make another file again, sudo nano test.txt for a text file. Go in here, test2, we'll hit Control X, Y to save for yes, and then enter to save it. So now if we go back to ls, there's the other file again. You've got a new test file. Now let's say I want to duplicate test, the test file. I don't want to ruin the original one. I want to change it. And this is very handy for when you're getting into the setting up something like Octoprint, or if you're doing something in RetroPie, you have a file, it's not working correctly, but you don't want to mess it up too much to where you change so many things you don't know where to start from. So what you do is you make a backup of that file, and this is how you're going to do it. We're going to go ahead and put in sudo cp, and then I'll just copy this right here and paste that right here. So we want to copy that file. We're going to hit space, and I'm going to paste that again, but this time I'm going to put 2. So it's test2, and then hit enter. Now you might have been like, oh, nothing happened. Well, if we go to ls again, now we have test2. So now let's say I want to go in there, sudo nano, and we're in test2 now, and I'm going to say this may work. All right, hit Control X, yes, enter. There you go. Me showing you this is all fine and dandy. I show you how to make all of these. To give you a visualization, I'm on VLC again. Here you can see the original commands, the text file. This is all the files we created, and then we copied that file. So like if we open this up, you see test2, and we open up that one, test2, this may work. So there you go. There's the original test file, there's that one. And just to show you how it worked, I'm gonna shrink down this window a little bit, put it off to the side here. So just to give you guys a visual, this is the desktop, so we need to cd desktop, ls, and those are the files that are right there. So let's say we wanna create a new one. Sudo nano new txt file. New, hit Control X, Y to save, and then enter. And look what shows up on your desktop right here. Just for those of you that need visuals. I'm one of those people that I like to see visuals. There you go. That was created right here. Now what's funny is I could just click and drag this into the trash, and it'll say, yes, do you want to delete this? I'm going to hit no for now, but in this command window I actually have to go in there and get into super user to remove it. And just to give you an example, sudo su, and I'm going to go to rm new.txt. And you see it was deleted right off the screen. It's that simple. Another thing that happens is you will get really good at this. You'll be working on a project, and then like me today, I go back to try to do what I was doing before, and it's like one of those things, if you don't use it, you lose it. So that's why I make a cheat sheet, and that's why I'm making this video for you guys, so you guys can have some reference on how to do that. So let me move this out of the way. All right, so let's talk about directories. If you hit ls, you see directories. These are your directories, okay? If you want to see what directory you're currently in, pwd, and that shows you what directory you're in. So we're in home, Pi. So like, let's say we went to cd desktop and we hit pwd, it'll show you that you're now in home, Pi, desktop. Going in directories, or you need to know what directory you're in. It usually lists it out here, but sometimes it gets short on you. All right, so let's talk about creating a directory. CD. All right, so ls, basically it's going to be like a folder for this. And you know what? Just for giggles, we'll actually do it on the desktop. So let's say cd desktop. ls, let's say we want to create a folder, or in this case, it's called a directory on the desktop. And like I showed you in this example earlier, it'll be an untitled folder. So if you want to make a directory, it is mkdir, and we're going to put a space, untitled folder. Now if we go to ls, you'll see, oh, I actually made 2 directories. I should have made it one word, I guess. Anyway, it made 2 directories. It made folder and untitled. So I probably should have put that together, or I could try and rename it. It doesn't matter in this point. It made a directory. So if we go back to the desktop, now you can see there's a folder. There's the one I tried before I tried to show you guys. There's folder and then untitled. So, which is funny that it made two different ones. So now I changed it in here, and if I go into here and I hit LS, we should see Untitled folder. There we go. Untitled folder. And that's what I should have done. Let's see if we could do that again. Make directory. And let's see if we could actually make it. We'll call it 2. Let's copy and we'll paste it there. And we'll call it 2. And see if that'll work. LS. Okay, so you have to put it in parentheses if you want to leave a space. Otherwise, it will make individual directories. So you can actually make multiple directories if you wanted to. But as you can see, if I bring this over again, you can see Untitled folder 2. So we're making folders. It's happening. And if you click in here, just to try and give you guys an idea, see how it's desktop. See, that's what we're doing. Desktop and Untitled folder 2. When we're in Pi, this is all the directory for Pi. These are all the folders. It's the same concept. So I hope that helps you in a lot of ways of understanding how this system works. So let's say you want to get rid of the directory now. So obviously we're going to do sudo su or super user, because that's the only way we're going to do it. We're going to go ahead and put in sudo remove -rf, and now we're going to get rid of Untitled 2. Paste, enter. Now if we go to ls, Untitled 2 folder is gone. So that is the way to remove a directory in the command line here. This will be the last command I show you, and there's two ways you can do this. You can write sudo shutdown, or you could put in sudo shutdown now. And the now shuts it down faster. Otherwise, if you just do the shutdown, you'll get a command prompt and it'll just say it'll shut down so much amount of time. If you hit shutdown now, it automatically just shuts down. See, closed out, shut it down. So that's my basics. I hope this kind of helped you understand how to go about and how to navigate inside a Raspberry Pi's operating system using a command window or terminal in my case. Alright, so that is some of the basic commands. As you can see behind me, I'm working on a cheat sheet for you guys. It'll be listed down in the description below. And you can copy and paste those commands in and being able to use that, or you can just make a copy of that out of my description and put it into a notepad or whatever else you want. So that way you have the reference for that. Now, there were so many more commands I wanted to show you, and this video is running a little bit long, so I think I'm going to do another video on showing you even more commands later on down the line. Obviously, I'm going to see how this video does, but if I get a lot of views and a lot of likes, that tells me I'm on the right path and that I should make more videos for you guys. So make sure you like, subscribe, and that tells me, hey, this video was worth it. This guy actually knows what he's talking about. Or he just made it easier for me to learn. There's that too. That's it for me, guys. Make sure you like and subscribe if this helped you in any way. And remember to ring the bell so you get notified when I make a video. And remember, you could do anything if you put your mind to it. Later, guys. Raspberry Pi. It sounds like a dessert, doesn't it? Okay, can we get some raspberry pie with some vanilla ice cream and a scoop of whipped cream? You're still here? You haven't clicked on all these videos that I made? Or better yet, like button? Or even better, subscribe button? Just putting it out there.